There's a moment that most leaders reach where they cannot quite explain what is wrong, but we know something's off. The business is functioning, clients are paying us, results are actually showing up well. From the outside, everything looks stable, sometimes impressive. But inside the leadership role, something begins to feel tight. It's not dramatic, it's not urgent, it's just compressed. Like there's no room left to breathe out. That feeling is rarely a motivation issue. It is almost never a discipline issue. It's usually a design issue. I want to talk today about why so many leadership systems quietly suffocate the people inside them, often while being labeled commitment, loyalty, responsibility. And I want to do it without the doom, without the guilt, and without pretending that the solution is simply to care less or just slow down. Because that advice ignores how leadership actually works. So I learned this lesson the hard way inside a consulting company that I partnered into a few years ago. When I joined, it was a small firm with really good intentions and capable people, but the delivery side of the business was strained. They never had figured out how to support more than just a few engagements at a time without quality eroding. So clients signed long-term contracts, but they tended to leave early. The system technically functioned, but it had zero margin. Now, my instinct was not to push harder. It was to build something that felt more sustainable. So we just redesigned delivery from the ground up, and we built it around cadence and rhythm. We started focus on relationship quality instead of huge heroic efforts. And we built a structure that could actually hold growth. And it worked way better than anyone expected. Within just a couple years, we were supporting 30 clients at a time with peaks at even higher client loads. Engagements lasted longer, results improved, the revenue stabilized upwardly. So on paper, it looked like a massive win. Now here's the part that makes me smile now, and the way that you smile when hindsight finally catches up to you. The delivery model required roughly 8 hours per client each month. Now the math alone should have made the next step way more obvious. We needed more people to deliver the work. But that step never really happened. Instead, the system just adapted around me. And I found myself delivering across dozens of engagements, working close to 60 hours a week, constantly finding ways to just hold it all together, waiting for that next thing, right? I took no real time off for more than 2 years. And each time the system needed more capacity, it did not redesign itself. It leaned further into the same nervous system. Because I could carry it, it just kept asking for more. That is how suffocation happens. Not through collapse, but through competence. Now, later down the road, the sales side of the business began asking for more revenue from our existing clients, even when the work had naturally reached its end. The logic behind it, I guess, was practical. Selling new people was difficult. Retention was a lot easier. But emotionally, it meant staying entangled in problems that no longer belonged to us and absorbing disappointment and strain that the system had no other place to put. Meanwhile, the salesperson took regular vacations. Now, I don't say that with resentment. I say it because systems are always honest. They place the weight exactly where they're allowed to, where they're designed to. I saw a different version of the same issue with a client who grew from 4 million to 7 million annual revenue. All the tools we installed worked, the strategy worked, profit margins climbed. But the leadership team became dependent on me in ways that I had never really intended. They called me about everything. Now, it wasn't because they lacked ability. It was because judgment had never been designed to live anywhere other than here. From the outside, it looked like I was the expert. From the inside, I was a bottleneck quietly disguised as success. Now, in both situations, the problem was not effort. It wasn't intelligence. And it certainly wasn't commitment. The problem was that the system relied on compression instead of capacity. Most leadership systems are built to endure, not to breathe. They reward the person who absorbs extra pressure. And then they start normalizing things like urgency. What happens then? We train our people to brace for stuff. Now, the human body recognizes this long before any dashboard can. Your breath starts to get shorter, recovery starts to disappear, and your thinking gets narrow. Leaders learn to stay alert instead of present. And when that happens, teams hesitate instead of deciding. Yeah, everybody still stays busy, but nothing feels spacious. And because results still show up, the cost usually gets overlooked. The shift that changed everything for me was simple, but not easy. I stopped asking how much more I could carry and started asking what the system was asking my body to regulate for it. That question reveals things really, really quickly. Things like, why does this decision need me? Or why does tension consistently land right here on my desk? Why does everything stabilize when I step in and fragile when I try to step away? Now listen, I'm not trying to create questions built around ego. I'm trying to create diagnostic questions. Because a system built to breathe distributes judgment. It creates clear decision boundaries and it allows tension to exist without immediately collapsing in onto one person. It respects the human nervous system instead of just chewing it up and spitting it out. This does not weaken leadership. It stabilizes it. Now, when systems breathe, leaders regain clarity. Teams regain judgment. And maybe most importantly, relationships become steady because accountability is structural rather than personal. That means that work feels meaningful again, not because it's lighter, but because it aligns with how humans are actually built to operate. Now, here's the hopeful part of all of this. If you feel tightness right now, it does not mean you failed. It means that your leadership outgrew the system supporting it. That's a good thing. It's not a flaw. It's an invitation. You get to build something better now. That's awesome. You get to design leadership that leaves room to inhale and exhale. You get to create systems that carry weight without draining the people that are inside of them working them. You get to redefine commitment as something that strengthens rather than compresses. Being built to breathe is not about escape. It's about alignment. It's about building structures that allow people to think, recover, and grow without being held together by one exhausted nervous system. Once you experience leadership that has room to breathe, it becomes very difficult to return to systems that only know how to hold their breath. And that difficulty, take it as a sign of growth. Let's do it.